Avariako. If I were in Kenya, that's the way I would say hello to someone if I were to go to visit my friends at Valley Light, or if I were to go to visit my friends at Hope Beyond Center. I want you to practice that today. Avariako. That means, hi, how are you? Well, it's good to be back with you, boys and girls, and I've got a great story for you today, and it's going to sound a little familiar to you, but it does have some differences. So I'm hoping that you're going to listen real closely and figure out what those differences are. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this story comes from Ghana, and Ghana is in West Africa, and it's down on the coast. It's a very small country. It's a long way from Kenya. I've never been in Ghana, but I'd like to go there someday and just see how it's alike or different from Kenya. The story that I'm going to read to you today is called Pretty Salma, and it's written by, well, actually, she didn't write it. It's a folktale from Ghana, and her name is Niki Daly. Before we get started, I want you to know that this book is going to have some words in it that we need to practice. But before I tell you that, I want you to know that Clarion Books gave us the permission to read this book to you today. So we're very grateful to them for that. Ghana, this is the way you spell Ghana, and that's the country in West Africa. Atumpan. Atumpan is called a talking drum. So I want you to listen really carefully to where you hear the atumpan in the story today. Burst. Burst means to break apart or to break open. Okay? Strutted. Strutted is the word that means to walk loudly or to just walk, yes, proudly. Ntama. Ntama is a wraparound skirt. We don't see too many of those in the States these days. It used to be a very popular dress at one time, but you will find that in the story as well. Back to Ghana, and now we're about to start with the story. Are you ready? Pretty Salma. And I'm going to do my best to try and sing a make-up song in here. So give me a extra help here. Salma lived with her granny and grandfather on the quiet side of town. One day her granny said, "Salma, pretty Salma, please go to the market for your old granny who loves you so." Salma put on her blue scarf, her stripy ntama, her wrap skirt, her pretty white beads, and her yellow sandals. Now she's all ready, but her grandmother's going to tell her something very important, and it's also a very important lesson for you all, so listen carefully. She tucked Granny's shopping list in her ntama, lifted Granny's big straw basket onto her head, and kissed Granny goodbye. "Straight there and back," said Granny, "and don't talk to strangers." Isn't that a lesson that we've also learned? You hear? "Okay, I promise," said Salma. Off went Salma, flip-flop, in her yellow sandals. As she walked, she sang her favorite song. "Oh, Salma, pretty Salma, come kiss Granny, your darling old Granny who loves you so." At the market, she bought a giant watermelon, a speckled rooster, an ice-cold pink drink, and a bunch of candy-striped straws. That's an interesting combination, wouldn't you say? The sun was growing hot, and the basket felt very heavy. So Salma decided to take a shortcut home through the wild side of town. Along the way, she sang her favorite song. "Oh, Salma, pretty Salma, come kiss Granny, your darling old Granny who loves you so." "Are you pretty Salma?" asked the stranger. It was Mr. Dog, and he'd been listening to her song. "Yes," said Salma. "Are you going to Granny's?" asked Mr. Dog. "Yes," said Salma. Isn't this starting to sound a little familiar? "Well, your pretty basket is much too heavy for such a pretty little head," Mr. Dog said. "Allow me to carry it for you." Salma did feel a bit dizzy from the heat, so she agreed to let Mr. Dog carry her basket. After a while, Mr. Dog asked, "What are you wearing on your feet?" "Sandals," replied pretty Salma. "They must be making your feet feel pretty hot," he said. "Why don't I wear them for you?" So they stopped and Mr. Dog slipped Big Feet into Salma's sandals. On they went, floppity-flip, flip-flop. After a while, Mr. Dog asked, "What's that wrap you're wearing?" "My ntama," replied Salma. "Oh, I bet you'd feel cooler without it. I'd be happy to wear it for you." No sooner had Mr. Dog wrapped Salma's ntama around himself than he asked for her scarf and her pretty beads. "How do I look?" asked Mr. Dog, striking a pose. Mr. Dog strutted along the road in high style. Salma began to miss her things, but when she asked for them back, Mr. Dog only said, "Some music will help beat the heat. Won't you teach me your song?" So Salma tried to teach him her favorite song. "Oh, Salma, pretty Salma, come kiss Granny, your darling old Granny who loves you so." But Mr. Dog was hopeless at singing. All he could do was woof, woof, woof. "I need a lot more practice," said Mr. Dog, "and until I learn to sing, you won't get your things back." Oh no. Salma begged. Salma pleaded. Mr. Dog, please give me back my things." Mr. Dog growled, "Shh! You will never get your things back. Now run away, little girl, before I bite you in two." Poor Salma got so frightened when she saw his sharp teeth that she ran and ran and ran until she found her grandfather dressed in his Anansi costume telling stories. When Grandfather heard Salma's story, he said, "That's a very exciting story, Salma, but it doesn't sound like a happy ending. How can we save Granny?" "I know," said Salma. "We'll scare Mr. Dog." "Exactly how will we scare Mr. Dog?" asked Grandfather. "Like this," said Salma, putting on the mask of Kakamotobi, the boogeyman. Salma picked up Anansi's atumpan, there's that word atumpan, which is a singing drum, and beat it loudly. "Goema, goema." Grandfather picked up his rattles and gave them a fierce shake. "Shuka, shuka." Little Abubakar, who loved a good scare, joined in with clapping sticks. "Katak, attack." "Let's go," cried Salma. Meanwhile, look down here what's happening. When Granny saw Mr. Dog flip-flopping up the path, she thought it was her pretty Salma. She must have had some pretty bad eyesight. "Salma, pretty Salma, come give your Granny who loves you a kiss," cried Granny. Mr. Dog leapt up and gave her a sloppy kiss. "Oh my, Salma," said Grandma. "What a wet nose you have." Granny took the heavy basket from Mr. Dog and said, "Salma, pretty Salma, you look hungry. Let's eat." Mr. Dog started to chase the speckled rooster round and round. "Oh my, Salma," said Granny, "what an appetite you have." Then Granny said, "Salma, pretty Salma, it's time for your bath." Into that bath leapt Mr. Dog. "Oh my, Salma," said Granny, "what hairy ears you have." "Are you sure you're my pretty Salma?" "Oh, yes, yes, yes," cried Mr. Dog, jumping onto Granny's lap and wagging his tail. Now Granny was really worried. Did her pretty Salma have a tail? Perhaps this wasn't her pretty Salma. Well, there was only one way to find out. "Let's sing our favorite song," said Granny, and she started to sing. "Oh, Salma, pretty Salma, come kiss Granny, your darling old Granny who loves you so." "Woof, woof, woof," barked Mr. Dog. Then Granny knew she had been tricked. She reached for her broom. Out! Get out! But Mr. Dog liked being pretty Salma far too much to leave Granny and Granny's house, so instead he growled and snapped at her. Granny was afraid Mr. Dog would bite her in two, so she jumped into her cooking pot. Mr. Dog pushed the lid down. Nice, he thought. Granny soup. Granny cried, "Help! Help! Help!" Just then the door burst open with a loud "Goema, goema, shuka, shuka, katak, katak." When Mr. Dog saw Kakamotobi, the boogeyman, and his gang, he got a terrible fright. That bad dog slipped and tripped over his miserable tail right out of the house back to the wild side of town. Salma took off her mask and helped Granny climb out of the pot. Then they all sat down to eat watermelon and sip an ice-cold pink drink through candy-striped straws. The next day, Granny sent Salma to market to buy new clothes. Salma went straight there and back, and she never talked to strangers again. What story does that remind you of? Little Red Riding Hood? Well, I understand that there's lots of different versions of this that are around that we can read, but this was just one, and wasn't it delightful? It had a little bit of a different twist, so I'm challenging you today. See if you can compare this story with our Red Riding story and come up with how many things are different and how many things are alike. So until next time, see you later.
Westminster. I wanted to go over a very special part of our training that we do with our distributions in Kenya when we distribute filters and we do the hygiene and the sanitation training. And that is where we talk about and we sing a special song on hand washing. It's really important that we help the communities that we serve learn about how they can stop disease in their home. And the number one way that all of us are stopping disease right now is washing our hands with soap and water. I will try and sing in Swahili, Kikuyu. Please know my language skills are nothing like the Kenyans, but I will give it a shot. I'll sing it first in English, and then we're going to sing it in Swahili with, I think, a little Kikuyu twist. So are you ready? I'm going to pretend that I've got clean water and soap. When we do this at our distributions, we have everybody line up who's helping us, and we give everybody soap, and we get everybody's hands wet, and we do this together. So just pretend I've got water and soap. So we say, and it says to row, row, row your boat. That's the tune. So it's really easy. You sing it twice, and once you've sung it twice, your hands have been rubbing together long enough that you can rinse them and all contamination is gone. All right, are you ready? Wash, wash, wash your hands, wash them nice and clean. On the top, on the bottom, even in between. Wash, wash, wash your hands, wash them nice and clean. On the top and on the bottom, even in between. Right? Pretty easy. I challenge you guys at your school to use this when you are washing your hands after using the latrine, right? The toilet. When you are washing your hands before you have your snack or after you come in from outside. Use this at home and show your family what you have learned about how hand washing practices are being taught in Kenya through our clean water program and how maybe your family can start to use them. All right, so I'm going to sing it now in Swahili. Be kind, okay? So we say, nawa nawa mikono, nawa vizuri, hapa juu, hapa chini, nakatikati. Nawa nawa mikono, nawa vizori, hapaju hapachini nakatikati. All right? If Leia was here, she would sing it so much better. And I'm so thankful for the opportunity to partner together with local leaders, because the relationships that we form in Kenya are really, really important to us. People matter to Just One Africa a lot. And so we want to make sure that everything we do is about people and about what's best for them. So we make sure to build good relationships with local leaders that lead us to other leaders within their community, that help us to identify people that are in greatest need, that are maybe in a vulnerable situation, have been dealing a lot with waterborne disease, and they need help, so that way their families can rise above the hopelessness that comes with every day dealing with waterborne disease and that sickness. And I'm really, really thankful for the opportunity for us to build those relationships, meet those needs, and work in community in ways that change the world, just one person at a time. So I hope you guys enjoyed learning about our hand washing song and about what is so important as we talk about hygiene and sanitation. It's not just about having access to clean water, but it's also about practicing those good habits that we're talking about, because we believe that they're important and they're going to help us. And so we choose to do them, and we choose to teach our families and our children stopping waterborne disease in our homes. All right, you guys have a great day. Thanks so much for letting me sing with you today.